Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining. I think I take this opportunity to run through quickly in within this limited time slot available. I will try to run through some of the PCI DSS specific terminologies or jargons and PCI DSS security related PCI DSS standards talking about controls and goals and milestones to be achieved. We're going to run through some of those related to the PCI DSS standard, but on top of it, we'll also have certain updates in terms of what's happening in terms of how is the impact on this digital era impact, digitization effects, and some of the controls, definition of controls from the basic, fundamentally from the information security management perspective, from the fundamental security triad, or the principles, security principles itself. So we'll touch certain fundamentals. Please do ask me questions if you have any doubts, but we will try to be a little fast because we have lost 8 minutes time and there's a lot of content in this slide. Actually, this presentation of the slides are not designed for a 1 hour time slot. It's more than 1 hour actually, but I'll try my best to see through what and all is the important part of the content. I'll try to cover. In case if it's required, we can have additional session as well if we cannot cover.
Okay.
So so the actual training agenda, and there's a top up which is done on this, which is the training agenda talks about PCI security overview, goals, objectives, and the account data itself, and the terminologies, as I said, applicabilities, levels, and the PCI standards, which is provided by SSC, Security Council. So in the and more definitions and roles and responsibilities and the relationship between these entities, and how the card processing happens in reality in the different stages before we reach the clearing settlement mode, what happens, authorizations and stuff. So an extract from PCI quick reference guide in terms of those controls or the milestones which we have to achieve, and the goals and the milestones. Yeah, goals and the milestones, and 12 controls will be we can quickly run through those. And cyber security strategy for responding, NIST standard perspective. You should have a framework before you start tackling a security incident. A cyber security framework and the strategy, and you should have a proper process. So PCI samples, do's and don'ts, and data security house. Potential fallout from a breach, and what could be the consequence, a typical example of fines for a merchant, just to understand. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So okay, let's look at some of the additional topics will be this. Actually, this is just a very high level overview because there is another session coming out with webinar on version 4.0 in detail. What is the change, and what is that you will have to expect from version 4.0, from every single requirement and the whole version 4.0 standard itself. There'll be a 1.5 hours, like 90-minute session on that. So there's already a plan for the session in few weeks. It will talk extensively on that. And yeah, these are the additional texts which are added. Okay. Before I think let's get to the point. I think COVID-19 has been definitely, we all know it's been an enabler of digital payment and cashless transaction, what we call. So the cashless transactions, say card not present transactions, there's a huge increase in the way the business have transformed themselves from traditionally card present to cashless or card not present transaction. You can see the statistics here. It's grown. The percentage has grown and the business has grown. It's become a trillion. So it's almost you can see that it's still it's a growing industry. Yeah, hi.
Okay. Sorry, came from another meeting, so sorry I'm late.
Okay, no
So
problem. Welcome.
have you started with Izati?
Yeah, it's restarted. Maybe it's a
Okay,
little
sure.
different content though. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thanks for joining. So yeah, I was talking about how the digital this digital era or the digital payment industry, how it has really gained momentum. It's a greater momentum that a catalyst for this was definitely the pandemic. So and cash present to cashless transaction, everything moved to cashless. In 2023, they're talking about 27.4 trillion in 2023. That's the figure, they're talking. I think it's gonna be more than that. Yeah, you can see that one of the statistics of Philippines, 150% in 1 month rise, because people had no other option to move on to be cashless just to avoid the risk. It's to make sure that they contain themselves, they don't get exposed to the risk. So now back to start with PCI DSS. PCI DSS, I don't have to read the content. It's pretty much written. We all know it's a data security standard. It's it's pertaining to payment card industry. There are multiple other standards, PCI, SSC, payment card industry. SSC gives multiple other standards. It could be for card production, it could be for PIN security, it could be for P2P security, covering PIN security, covering key injection process and all this stuff. So there are different standards, 3DS, those standards are different than data security standard. Data security standards is all about the card data environment, where the card data is stored, processed, and transmitted. So the focus is on three key components of computing. Computing components. Computing is storage computing and transmission over network, processing once again of the servers and end user computing systems, or servers, or the point of sales equipments or terminals, whatever. So how the data is processed. Now, once again, the more focus point of sales don't sit inside the CD card data environment. They are actually on the business side when I say it's on merchant side. So we don't get into deep into the equipment point of sales because the manufacturers are going through their own set of process to ensure those equipments are certified. Could be from Angelica or any other brand. So our key focus or the primary focus would be on the card data environment, which is where the data is actually sitting in, and how the data is transmitted to other parties, how the data comes from the merchant to the card data environment, how the data goes back upstream to the acquirer banks, or you connect back to the acquirer bank, and acquirer bank sends it for settlement process or authorization process to the issuer. So those are the stories we'll be more interested in, rather than getting into some other standards or getting into another entity shoes. Now the payment card industry data security standard is all about securing the data. So what data is it? It's cardholder data. Now in version 4.0, they literally have taken a different reference there. They're talking about principles like security principles also there. They've spoken about principles there in terms of they're talking about account data. Now they're talking account data as a word. So we don't want to talk here for version 4.0 because still in the 3.2.1. But I'm just telling there is the renaming done. There is a few things have been renamed there. The words have been renamed to cover the broader perspective. The narrow perspective has been broadened there. That's it. That's a difference. Card order data is still the term we'll be using throughout. And yeah. And what is the aim? What is the aim? Aim is to still focus on the card order data as an environment, but there are people and there are technology and there are processes which is governing this environment. So those are the value, those create value. These three things create value. So those three, and a critical, business, critical business process and critical people were part of the Cardor data, and the technologies which are critical technologies are part of the Cardor data. They are the key elements that we would be dealing with. Actually, we'll be assessing those as well. So these are things which has to be kept in mind, throughout the certification program. That when we talk about a technology, there are technologies which calls there are technology which calls for certain people to be working on it, and they are in scope. And just a minute, I'm just pausing. Yeah, sorry, I just had to receive a call and say that I'm in a meeting. So PCI, once again, PCI, why is PCI payment card industry or the payment card industry data security standard? We don't want to talk about the PCI. We want to talk about DSS, data security standard required. Because data security standard is required because you want to protect the data, cardholder data, which you have an obligation to protect. If you are a service provider, as an acquirer bank, as an entity dealing with it as a service provider, or an entity who is a merchant who's just doing merchant sales and services. So or it could be e-commerce merchant, or it could be just a retail merchant who has a store, or it could be an entity who is providing, I mean, once again, it's on the service provider itself. So you have an obligation to protect the data. So whether what are you doing with this data is governing, means the scope of your your assessment is dependent on what you are doing with this data. Are you storing? Are you creating this data as an issuer and an acquirer? Are you processing this data? Are you storing this data? Are you transmitting? Whom and all you are transmitting? What is the obligation? What is the what is the responsibility of the other side, of the other party receiving the data? Have you defined those responsibility in the shared responsibility model? So this whole subject has to be holistically looked in terms of how you are governing. That's governance. How you're governing. Do you have a governance model to govern your data? Do you have your data model? How your data is spread across, and do you have a proper ownership defined? Do you have responsibilities defined? That's a data governance. I'm talking about specific data governance now, and it's not part of the slide because I don't want to make this as a same old repeated story. So I'm also bored, so I try to see through that. I bring some new things in the content. So stories, we all know it's digital, and security and fraud is on higher. The fraud there's a high alert today. As of today, there's a increase in the number of issues. Cybersecurity issues are on the hype, or on the this is the most important thing that everybody is talking about, cybersecurity crimes. But when you talk about cyber crimes, I think there's a drastically, it's like a spike. There's a huge increase from 2021 to 22. And the even if you look at the some of the uh, publications or the reports or the standards, when like reference standards or the guidelines, like OASP, Open Web Application, related, they give you certain updates. And if you look at the 2021 to 2017 to 21, the transition, things has changed. Then it's shifted literally. they're talking about now about access control as one of the major critical or the top one elements or the top one domain among the information security or the overall cybersecurity as a domain. Access control is the major area where they say the primary focus have to be given that. That's a top area they're talking, because most of the time, due to the weaker access controls, data leakage was the biggest issue. Data leakage. So that's why technologies like data loss prevention has been the most important technologies, and people are talking these days. How do you ensure that end-to-end data, we make sure data doesn't get leaked or data, there's no leakage or loss, and you want to make sure data is protected throughout the cycle of the flow of the data. Those are the subjects which are happening, and definitely I've been working on few research reports and also reading a lot of latest cybercrime reports published 2022. I see that digitalization impact is gained momentum. Digitalization has gained momentum, but greater momentum, but it has impacted a lot because because of the lack of awareness and because of the lack of controls. And zero trust, we talk about going zero, means you don't explicitly you don't trust trust the entity or identity by default. You don't trust the laptops, you don't trust users. You just zero them down and then start with no trust and then build the trust. According to the trust they can build, you provide them access according to the state of the health status of the system or the trust level. They accordingly get configured and they move to accordingly to that particular configuration, and they get that access. Maybe they don't get to access still financial information. They may be isolated because they still have an issue on the laptop. That's zero trust model. It's going literally zero to based on your status or the health status of your system and overall status. Maybe your patches, critical patches are not updated, which is supposed to be updated. Grace period is already over. So you don't now anymore connect to the you're a finance guy trying to connect from home, work from home, try to do a VPN or try to use some technology, remote access to connect. But the zero trust model will say that I have to evaluate it from zero, and then it says that sorry, I cannot put you on the finance LAN, and you're still on a different LAN, but you might have limited connectivity. That's how it works actually, practically. So once again, now the obligations of customers like you or the banks like do we have to be really PCI DSS compliant? Once again, the call is upon you. So what is that you are doing? What is the kind of business you run, and what is the contractual clause? Do you have an obligation to be compliant? And do you have any higher entities pressurizing you or asking you to be compliant? Banks asking, merchants asking service providers, and once again banks asking their service providers, and banks have been governed once again by the national bank. Banks have been governed by card brands or the SSC. So it depends, right? It's a totally a different ballgame. So now data production consideration, card brands, acquire banks. So we need to understand the card brands are typically your Visa, your MasterCard, the plenty of the Discover, Amex is not part of this PC. They come under totally different compliance scheme. But yes, so now so when you are storing or processing or issuing, you are issuer bank issuing cards. So then you might be definitely you're definitely under the radar. Means you have to see through that you're compliant because you might the card brands are watching you. You want to get it's a trust model. Once again, it's a trust model, assurance. How do you provide assurance? You provide assurance through compliance. Simple. Service provider, could lose merchant confidence. It's all about confidence and assurance. That's what I would talk. And credibility is another part to it. And you can make business. You can make your business grow by saying that you are already, compliant. That's another part to it. It's a standard. Standards are all mandatory in nature. It's enforcement. And validation versus compliance. Compliance is it's a continuous task, 365 days. So while the validation is only a one-time task, but they expect you to be compliant throughout the clock. But the assessors might validate and leak, but it is the customer responsibility to be compliant throughout the clock. Otherwise, next year compliance is impacted. Okay, so now I don't. This is a very simple question. What kind of data PCI is focused? I already spoke about it. So anybody wants to take the call to answer, so I can take a 1 minute break. Maybe there are a few people. Oh, TIB only. Other external party join. What are the types of data which is PCI is focusing on? All this, or one or two or three?
Right. Older data.
Yeah. So
Yes.
okay. So PHI and PI is not the data type which is PCI is focusing. It's health information here. Patients or personal health information related. This is once again personally identifiable information. Those are counted on different framework altogether. So that's not the focus. Okay. Yeah, it's not a legislative, it's a regulatory requirement, and we've already spoken about it. So digital payments, fraud and all. So goals and objectives, once again, business objectives, sustain and grow, business goal success. Biggest threat for business. Yeah, I already spoke about it. This has been a major concern, actually. Especially the access control has been the major control, which is a primary control or the most top concern because the data loss happens most of the time because there's no proper access control measures there. So yeah, it's a 24/7, 365 days and continuous process. Yes. Talk about controls. We talk about now they're different models or technologies which are available like security 360-degree, defense in depth, full defense, deep dive analysis, deep dive, and zero trust. Yeah, casual model. There are different technologies, and so they might fit in. Once again, they are trying to address the problem in different ways. Now, when we talk about security 360 degrees, having all different types of controls, not just, but mainly a control which can detect, and you have a monitoring system which does full monitoring, and they detect, and you have a defensive system. At the same time, you have a prevention system, and you have a system which can also act proactively to fix the problem. So that's once again, defense in depth is going full layered security, all the layers. So from layer 1 through 7, in ensuring there is a full security. Security is placed at all layers. So now back to the security triad. So our objective is to ensure that our data is protected, and security principles, triples is also called security triples are used: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The most important elements when you talk information security. So data has to be protected, and we have to ensure that only parties who deserve to, who has certain access level security clearance have those access to those data, and none of the other parties can access that data, and that way you provide confidentiality. You also provide make sure to encryption, and you have certain people have keys to access that data, decrypt. Integrity is all about ensuring that data don't get modified, and the originality of the data is so. So the data is original, and the hash values are matching. So that's hashing is a technology, one-way hashing, and those key integrity. Those controls provide integrity. Availability. The most important among these three is availability. And this is the question which is asked. They say no, confidentiality is most important, integrity, but actually it's availability. Because data is not available, you don't talk about confidential integrity. You have to ensure the data is available around the clock. Otherwise, business is gone. Okay. I also have this proverb written because it's very, very important. Instead of going reactive, you can be proactive, and prevention is better than cure. Yeah. Actually, these are not part of PCI DSS. Some of this actually we can even skip because we want to align ourselves to PCI rather than getting. But these are also very important. Many organizations, they call themselves enterprises which don't follow. Unfortunately, they don't align well. And many of the trainings also don't really talk about these very important things. Is they very importantly they need to ensure that there's a proper vision, mission statements, and they have a proper security business objectives, and there is a security objective derived, and then there is goals and there is KPIs. So and whenever you have a security objective and you have a policy, and the policy have to use security policy is defined, then security policy will be implemented with this top-down approach. While the monitoring system will use bottom-up approach to when bottom-up approach to capture logs and events from the end system. Reporting of incidents, bottom-up approach. Employees are trained. Security awareness training, top-down approach. But the employees are reporting incident, bottom-up approach. Okay, I think I'm not gonna go too detailed because of the time crunch. We can spend 1 hour or 2 hours time on these 5 slides itself. Because there's a lot to talk about, a lot of examples can be given. But let's not derail our objectives here. Our objectives is still card holder data, account data. Yeah, so good. So I want to reiterate that very, very important. The card of data is what you're seeing here, the account data. And 16 digit in the chip is a EMV protected EMV card. EMV technology is used here. It's not just a magnetic stripe. And then the chip is protecting the information, and you cannot, there are technologies that talk of making sure that you read the information from the chip and all. I'm not talking about those technology, but I'm talking about a protection offered by EMB, and the chip is providing maximum protection. And there's a magnetic stripe still, which carries certain data. And our sole interest here is span and the American Express, but CVV, CVC data still protected, and expiry. So American Express has it in the front. They should try to show that that's it. In other with other card providers, it's beyond, because this is a sensitive data. This is sensitive authentication data, which should not be printed in the front. The logic is right. Actually, if you ask me, the logic is quite good. It should be behind. Okay, now there are 2 types of track data: full track data and track 1 and track 2. One is a full track data, other one is a shorter one. You can read it here. It's one is 79 character, 20. Okay, so now the difference between card or data and SAT. SAT is not being SAT. Actually, it's the saddest part to SAT data is you cannot store SAT data permanently. Sensitive authentication data at any cost. It has only temporarily you can store that, and even if it is encrypted. So that's what is the story here. What kind of data can be what kind of data is classified as authentication data sensitive? Because you need to understand, before a transaction is authorized, there is an authentication scheme which is built into the card. And the authentication scheme is provided through this data methods. So I do understand that PIN is exempted for certain payware, for example, for 2,000 until 2,000 or $5,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, whatever. There's an exemption. You don't have to key, and that's because you want to make it faster. But there's a risk which is there when somebody uses this card wrongly. To avoid that, there is this authentication data has been put there, and definitely smaller transactions still goes through now to the current technology of PayWave. So it does exempt you from authenticate. Yeah, and whoever is holding the card can still go through. That's a risk. Once again, please do understand the PAN card name, expiration date, service code. The service code is in the card. Depending on the service code, the negotiation happens. Whether the card has to ask for PIN or not is also a service code mechanism. And many parameters can be negotiated there. Okay. So please do take a look at this and please be aware, memorize or be aware. Make yourself aware of this because it's very, very important if you are in the PCI DSS compliance program. Because most of the time people are asking me some basic questions which I keep telling and doesn't really create any value proportion for me. So, and by repeating the same thing, it's good that we are recording this so that it can be, you can share it across with other parties also. Technical guidance for PCI data storage. Sensitive authentication data cannot be stored, simple. And what can be stored and under protection? Example, most of the things, if you look at one, it says elements must be protected. So that's the thing. It has to be. Protection is definitely required. Now there is no tools here because there is no way you can still store this data, right? Even if you encrypt it. So three also doesn't exist. Now track one, track two, track one, full data. You can see here it has all that information. Service code also. And a service code will be there in track two also. So it's a short form of data. I think the story of track one and track two has come, in the olden days when we had these dial-up networks. You cannot carry much of the information. Then you had to use a shorter message, lesser data. Okay, now I think let's now focus on payment industry terminology. This is most important, but to understand, but most of you are already aware of it. You know who is the merchant, you know who is the acquirer, their banks, they know who is, sometimes there are acquirers and issuers at different banks, then comes the story. Many times acquirer and issuers are different banks, right? Because I hold a bank, let's take I hold Citibank card and I go to the Fair Price or a 7-Eleven shop and they have a OCBC or DBS bank or some other bank, international bank, HSBC provided POS and they are the acquirer banks. Then this story is different. But if I have a HSBC card, then the acquirer and issuer bank is same. Okay, all right. So means the idea is you don't have to go through the long process of using this payment brand networks, Visa network and all this. Yeah. Okay, the definition of merchant, I don't have to run through. Issuer is the one who issues the card, and when a merchant goes, when we go to a merchant, 7-Eleven shop, and I produce the card, when they swap the card in their acquired bank, in that case was whichever is the bank, they have to process that, and they have to connect back to payment bond network to the issuer bank. Issuer bank was some OCBC bank, and Citibank or issuer bank or Citibank. If there's OCBC was the acquirer bank, then they have to connect back to issuer side and check back if in this case the transaction can be authorized. Sorry. Once you get the authorization code, then that's done. Then it moves to the further state. Simple. Merchant receives and requests and receives authorization to our process to. Okay, rest all. I'm just skipping because I've just got a few more minutes. I think it needs another session or something. So you can read through all this and applicability and levels. As I said, I've already spoken about all this. Third-party process, financial institutions and banks and card brands, card manufacturers. They all most of the whoever is coming in the cycle of this card data, whoever is touching, they might be under this regulatory requirement. See, different definitions are there, not to get confused, right? So, but I would just say that level 2 is lowest and level 1. But because if you go through Google, they might see 5 levels. Many customers come back with a lot of confusion saying, can I go with 4 or can I go with 3? I just say, just go with 2 and just that's it. No need to do anything beyond. And 1 is highest and requires ROC, and the definition is 3 million above kind of thing. And once again, gross transactions, yeah, talking about gross transactions, you can say 5 million above. Depends now whether you want to be level 1, level 2. You need to also talk to your upstream stream bank or what the governing body, who's watching you out. So on. Service provider validation. So you need to understand level 1 is quite stringent, and you need a ROC for QSA and quarterly network scans by ASV approved scan vendors. The quarterly network scans, the approved scan vendor is an external scan, and so attestation of compliance means AOC has to be released upon completion of the ROC report of compliance. So there's a stringent validation which is the requirement. You have to comply with all the requirements under the PCI version 3.2.1 standards. So level 2 is annual SAC, self-assessment questionnaire. It's for smaller merchants, smaller businesses who have less transaction. They can still comply self-assessment questionnaires. It can be assisted by QSA, or it can be independently done by themselves. There's only AOC, there's no ROC. Okay. All other different standards. You can read through. Different standards are all for different purpose. Payment application is for applications for those customers or those software solution offering company. These were providing software solutions which are related to payment applications. They're providing payment applications which can be customized and used. They have to be PCI DSS compliant because they want to sell. Once again, selling point. P2P, the Angelico device having an application inside. They are payment. They should be PCI DSS certified. P2P, point-to-point encryption. Now, the transactions have to be secured, and that's where the point-to-point encryption comes in place, and how the keys are managed now. PIN transaction security. This is a totally different subject altogether in terms of it is pertaining to the point of interaction, point of sales equipment, and then comes how the the pins are protected and how the transactions are secured in terms of HSMs are used, host security, hardware security models used. And the standard for that, and you have to go through the validation. There will be validation on the pertaining to the PTS standard. Cloud project production has to go through their own set of. It's another standard. So now, what does SSC do? They provide all these standards, and they also keep rosters of QSA, QSS, PCI. There is another thing called payment card industry professionals and QRs, resellers, integrators, ASVs, validated payment applications. Yeah, they keep a roster of all the applications which are certified and devices which are certified, models, PTP solutions, all this stuff. Software Another is environment, application, hardware. That's how it is, ecosystem. So I was just taking this example. Already I said the application has to be meeting the norms. Know more about PCI, you can read through, please. Because time maybe is not permitting me to talk about in detail about types of service providers and stuff. But yeah, there can be multiple types of service provider based on the business and the kind of impact they do on the cloud data and the service offerings. So cloud service provider, it's one of the types, which is not written. Sorry, which is not written here, but it's written here with the name Microsoft and Amazon. Okay, I think we don't want to scratch too much around. Every 3 years or 4 years, things, new standards, revisions, and all this happen. Substandards, some like 3.1, 3.2, 3.2.1, minor changes, major changes, and all this stuff happens. And the new standards are getting updated on and off. And we already have a 4.0, which is relative far. Okay. Relationships. That's how it works. We have spoken. I have spoken extensively already. Throughout the cycle, this is how it happens. Merchants connect to payment gateways, and it could be directly a payment gateway from Acquire or a third-party payment gateway like WorldPay, this kind of stuff, and then actually it moves to Acquire Bank, and then payment brand network to card process in between and card issuers. That's how it works. And there's a full story there. Okay, let's not get too much into these. You can read through by yourself. DSS validate the scope of assessment. They conduct PCI DSS assessments, verify technical again by merchant or service provider banks. They have to be independent by their judgment. They go on site to do an assessment if required, and work product that support means review of the work product means the different types of evidence, system evidence, documentations, interviews. So they adhere quickly. So they adhere to PCI DSS standards, all the requirements which are there as part of the standard. They do provide the gap report, and they provide they review the post remediation evidence. They also evaluate the compulsory control if they're really meeting the primary control rigor or not. So final assessment and final report of compliance. So that will determine it's partially compliant or non-compliant or fully compliant. Anyway, non-compliant can be partially compliant also. It is non-compliant is a word used. It's just a general word. Okay, all right. Roles of PCI SSE, can please read it. Acquire bank responsibility, which you are already aware of it, because I don't think so any other stakeholders are there in this call. So I'm not going to cover this because you're already aware of your own responsibility. So do make sure that your downstream, your downstream merchants and their service providers are all also understanding that they need to be compliant. They need to safeguard your interest, which is data. Data, which is what you're sharing with your service providers, and or the merchant sharing data with you. Okay, all right. Credit card processing, this is about credit card, this is not a debit, right? There's a difference, little difference when you talk about credit card. Right? the card issuer, it says. So start from your internet, e-commerce, payment gateway, then the merchant bank processor, and then it goes to credit card issue, card issuer, credit card issuer, and then it comes back to merchant. It is the authorization exactly. That's it. The authorization flow which happened. Once the authorization, you receive the authorization code, it starts with the settlement process, and then and the buyer has got what he wants. That's it. And then the actual, see, the direct debit, it's not a direct debit, it's a credit card. Means there is a credit time. It's not like immediately you get billed. You need to understand the difference. Okay, card processing. This is more on my authorization perspective. So very importantly, the difference is acquirer sends approval to merchant. So then the approval code, so once the authorization code and approval is there, then the actual purchase happens and he gives the receipt and you got your purchase secured. That's it. Okay, all right. You can go through this authorization full detailed process as well. Settlement process that happens between two banks. Definitely it has to happen between the acquirer and the issuing bank, right? And it's merchant. And the two parties involved here is merchant and the card holder. So that's all is being indicated here. So the 2 points are also indicated here between these two parties. Payment is received by the merchant bank. See, there is a difference. The clearing process, right? You need to understand. Purchase information is exchanged between two banks, acquirer and issuer. So after that comes the clearing process, and it happens usually within 24 hours, actually. And it depends. And then the settlement, actually, it is not that the settlement has happened already. Payment. So it's debited, actually. Yeah. The card holder, whoever is holding the card, his account has to be debited. Reconciliation is the key word here in case of clearing. Reconciliation is a very important task. So the clearing keyword is reconciliation. Next is the settlement. The dual message exchange can go through. Exchange of funds. Guarantee payment. There's a guarantee. Card holder bank sends payment to settlement. And then we see the last. Billing is already happened to the card holder. Whoever is the card holder, he has been paid. In case of credit card. In case of debit, there is no billing. It's just a debit. Okay, this is the actual topic of the day. Six milestones and goals to be achieved. Now, since I think what I'll do is there's a lot actually I put here. These are additional slides. Okay. What I'll do is I'll just try to cover some of the things at least for this thing. We can extend this for another session next week. Or this week, we'll see. Oh, today is Monday, right? So this week, some other day. PCI DSS compliance, as I said, 12 requirements still did not change. 4.0 still carries 12 requirements. So goals, milestones, you need to understand you group these requirements into goals and milestones. They call it as milestones. Once you have achieved all the 5 milestones, then you're done with your requirements. Now it is logically it flows very neatly. First thing is whenever you are the best thing to do is when you're building things, you build it in a very good fashion. Means build an application, build a system, have a process to build, have a proper standard definition, the standards defined and guidelines defined. Now you build a system in a secure fashion. Once you build a system in a secure fashion, you have to maintain it to be secure. That's the first requirement. And once you do that and you start storing the data, it is your responsibility to end-to-end protect the cargo data, which is data interest and data in transmission. Okay, and once you do that, then you need to see through that. No, you don't minimize the risk. You have a risk assessment process and you have a vulnerability management program under that, wherein you are managing vulnerability. It can be a risk assessment process wherein you assess the risk and do check back on a continuous basis. You run a vulnerability assessment, VAPD kind of scenarios, and so that you protect these assets against the risk and maintain a vulnerability management. How do you manage when you find the vulnerabilities already? How do you manage those vulnerabilities? So you need to make sure that you have a vulnerability management program. Now, back to vulnerability management, majorly the assets what you talk about, end user competent system servers, they have to be safeguarded with anti-malware programs and stuff to protect against malwares. So those are the critical areas of focus here. Another area is make sure your applications are designed in a secure fashion. The systems are also already designed securely. Now the applications are designed securely, and you have a vulnerability management program there. That's the thing. Manage the vulnerability well. And next goal would be to have a strong access control. Actually, this is the most important domain now. Domain of the area of focus now. Even OWASP is talking about access strong means MFA, multi-factor authentication. You have to identify the user. Identification process is very important. So it's one of the important, but you have to make sure the identification process as next step is authentication process as multi-factor authentication, means multiple ways to authenticate the object trying to access a subject. So the object trying to access a subject, right, it knows that the object is trying to access subject. What is the subject which is trying to access? Whether it has the authorization level to access the subject is another level, but primarily the authentication is the first level. So the authentication has to be having multiple factor. So it's like biometrics or my smart card, your passwords, OTPs and stuff. So something you have, something you know, something you are. That's the multi-factor authentication concept. So that's under the access control, and identification, as I said, is very important. Authentication is another one. And apart from that, stronger access control is all about privileges assigned, need to know, need to have basis, least privilege, role-based access controls. All this come under access control. So now, logical access control is what we discussed, but it doesn't restrain itself to logical access control. It also talks about the physical access controls, which are most importantly your, premises access control, your doors or the bidirectional access controls, and the physical security, your CCTV cameras, your, visitor, process, how the visitor gets access to the premises, escorting process, and alarms, all this are covered under the physical access control, including your fire alarms and all those stuff, logs for visitor logs. How do you maintain this stuff? Yeah. The fifth goal is to ensure that you have this beautiful access control, you have this vulnerability management program, you build a system, you maintain a system, you have got all the standards, hardening standards and all this. Now, that's all good, but without you monitoring these, how do you ensure a reliability, complete reliability? A smart solution has to be reliable. So this is one of the parameters. So then you need to make sure that you have a monitoring system which is quite extensive in nature. It monitors every single parameter. Now you talk about it. So a system, a server, disk usage, alerts on disk usage, CPU, memory. So there should be parameters defined, right? So what is the metrics? What are the metrics? You should have a predefined metrics for those. What are you trying to monitor, and what's the threshold? That's how it works. So you need to regularly monitor, continuously monitor. It's not regularly, it's continuous monitoring. Actually, I think the word has to change. Maybe regular is regular, maybe interval, but this is continuous. Maybe it's amended on 4.0. I need to take a look at this. I'm not sure. Test networks. Yeah, we need to also test networks. Now comes the more than just having a management program. You need to have a process saying you need to do half-yearly testing, like penetration testing, web application, your system infrastructure testing, your now let me talk about secure DevOps process. So many of you guys are aware. I think maybe if you're not in the cloud, maybe not aware. Cloud business. Secure DevOps is itself is a continuous process. It has multiple things embedded. If you look at the most simplest and the most sophisticated secure DevOps process, there could be agile process initially used. It's like everything is continuous integration, continuous development, continuous deployment. They talk about all this in the secure DevOps process. So it's very, very important. We need to see through that. Continuous testing is one of the also requirement. Continuous testing now. That is part of the continuous integration. So we need to go through, those are the stuff, right? In a traditional data center model, we might not talk about these kind of things, but yes, we need to evolve. Everything has to evolve. So I am evolving every day. I'm talking now these things which I never spoke in the last session. What I spoke today, many things that was not spoken in the last session, because I'm connected and I'm evolving. Means the changes, the dynamicity, what is there has to be matched. Otherwise, we are getting obsolete also. So now that's about the penetration testing and stuff. In very plain vanilla things I've spoken in the last session is penetration testing, but today I spoke about other things from cloud perspective. So requirement 12. Now I can even speak more on this regularly monitor and test. I can even speak about testing, different levels of testing. Unit testing, it can be API testing, unit testing, it can be specifically functional testing done. It could be a stress, this could be a load test, there could be application specific security penetration testing, API testing. There could be tons of testing. You can put up your own test cases there. Anyway, that's a good subject though for us to see. Really read through. Yeah. Anyway, get back to the PCI DSS scope reduction. Very, very important. Most of you all should be looking at. Many companies don't do this. They want to keep it flat. It's like throwing you're throwing away all things. Like it's like a junkyard. You visit a junkyard, you would see all things are there's no segregation. Everything is messed up. Everything is mixed and messed up. And now, if somebody says, can a junkyard, is there can you reduce the scope there? I say no, the whole junkyard is in scope because there are eatables, there are plastics, there are things everywhere spread across, and a plastic carrying a lot of eatables. Now, I'd say my point of interest is only biodegradable material that I see. Everything is mixed and messed up. Now I say the whole thing is under scope. The whole junkyard is under scope. Now let's take there are containers and the containers have been labeled saying biodegradable waste only and non-biodegradable waste. And I see go and investigate. when I go and investigate as an assessor, open up these bins and I do some investigation. I try to pull out some things. I put my hand in and make my hand dirty maybe, but still I would be happy to investigate, making my hand dirty. Then I see that, yeah, I don't see any non-biodegradable materials in a biodegradable segregated bin. Then I say that, yeah, it's segregated. Now the scope is reduced. Now my part of the assessment is only my interest. Hopefully I made it in a very simple example. You need to really segregate and reduce the scope. Don't mess. Flat network is an issue. Even though PCI DSS really doesn't worry much, means not worry. They don't say you have to segment the network, but it is your problem if you don't segment it. Okay, now I asked the stakeholders question before I move on, because I have to be professional to the best possible. Do we have to continue this meeting, or do you have a few more minutes that we can continue? Means do you have to continue this meeting, push this meeting off to a next one?
We're okay to proceed.
Okay, all right. Okay, we can close this meeting at today sharply at another. We got 20 minutes. Okay, 20 minutes. I'll stop this meeting off, and whatever is covered is covered. Okay.
Okay.
Have
Sure.
half the way already, anyways. Okay. Complete. So okay. Before I even move forward, any questions at this point of time? The most interesting part is already just now started on PCI. Any questions for me until now?
None from me.
All right. All right. Thanks for that. So now very lot of content is written. You can read through, right? I don't want to be another book reader or a novel reader or a news reader, newspaper reader, or a come and read this news for you. So I just want to make sure I give you some layman or the very basic simple examples to provide illustrations to you practically, so that you can understand why this part of the thing is very important. Scope reduction methodology of activity is very important. The methodology is all about you thinking what is the best way for you to, like segregations, VLANs, virtual access control list, or VLAN access control list, sorry, VLANs, virtual LANs, local area networks, or it could be VPCs, or it could be segregations on totally isolations done and through your own methods. I don't want to specifically talk about a particular method here, because there are tons of methods, now tons of technologies to do that. And but it is very important for us to understand. It's very important to reduce the scope. The another way of looking at it is if you don't want to save the card data, you just don't save the card data. That's it. You reduce the scope already. It's a direct way. And or another way of looking at it is just truncate the card data and store simple. Don't store the full pan. Why do you want to reduce the risk? It's all about, once again, risk assessment methodology. I mean, you have a proper risk assessment methodology as per NIST. If you flow through that NIST 553, 30, all these documents, I think. So you should be there actually. The risk assessment, risk reduction process is one of the important, and mitigation is risk reduction process also. When you mitigate, you're reducing the risk part, but you're not eliminating the risk. Please do understand that. It's very well, basically, we know that you cannot eliminate the risk to 100%. Still, that is inherently, maybe it is a low risk. It is that you don't have to worry. Remediation plans, blah, 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 put up your plans to make sure. That's what is risk assessment. You need to understand what systems are storing. Why is your, why do you think is your end user computing system having some card data stored on those system, a scanner, data discovery tool scanning and showing that there are card holder data or the credit card information or the debit card information stored on a particular end user computing system is a high risk, because you're now not reduced Here, you've increased the scope to even the end user computing system. Ideally, I was expecting you have a reduced scope, at least servers. And if you ask me, particularly servers which are only really processing and doing job, and why do you have to have everything in scope? You should. So your strategy should be to reduce. Now, you might need a support from business, definitely. You want to buy certain tools to do that. You might want to have a discovery tool, scan and see where and all data is there. You might want to buy certain products to segregate. You might want to put up some move to cloud. You need to have a cloud service provider. You might have a support. You might have approval to move to cloud. You might want to do hybrid, and you might want to set up some point VPNs across VPC, VPN extensions and stuff. You need approvals. You need approvals, and you might need budget to buy certain software, certain hardwares. Yeah, so you need to approach finance team and business leader to explain the available options and get buy means get an approval. Means they need to see they need to articulate the return of investments and the cost benefit. Means when you are saying we have to buy this, there should be a justification, and you should articulate those value proportions. What business will reap in the coming years as a return of investment on having such things done. Yeah. So yeah. Scoping in segmentation is one big activity. Scoping is a very important activity. So we need to understand first. Well, as an assessor, am I gonna go and I had my task for inventory? Why? Because inventory is the only place where I can put an inventory, raw inventory given to me, which would not serve a purpose, because I'm not an employee of so and so organization to know that these systems are doing this job. If you just give me a raw inventory, which is just telling the Dell system, physical system with RAM, and this is the hard disk space and something, written, maybe that doesn't serve the purpose, because I will not have that much insight to understand this system is doing what purpose. I need the function. I need the classifications of these systems. A physical system hosting 5 VMs. Okay, what are those VMs? What are the functional classification of those VMs? What is it doing actually? Then I will be able to see through. And if you have a clearly definition of those systems, then we can look at those systems, whether they are in scope or not, or if they can be taken out of scope, why not? So somebody was in the past was questioning me, can we exclude landing host? Landing host, sorry for that background noise, maybe if you are, because it's speaking loud. Landing host is another example I want to pick up. A landing host is a landing zone, or a landing host is a place where people have been allowed to connect to those subsystems to connect back to the actual data processing systems, or the actual systems where they would work on it. But this is just a landing host, is a landing zone. In the landing zone is a landing host, is a host where you just connect back through terminal. From there you connect back to the actual system. Now, whether this host is in scope, yes, this host is still in scope for me. But how do you reduce the scope? Do you want to make this host run through the whole 12 requirements? Does the assessor have to go in and assess all the 12 requirements? Or no. You have to reduce the scope. I mean, you have to classify the system accordingly. That's what I said. Data classification, system classification is one of the most important tasks that you as an information security person should be doing, or you should push. If you are not doing it right, you should push the owners of the system, to make sure that give you enough data so that the systems are classified. And this system is carrying, database systems are definitely critical systems. There is no second thought about it. But is that the data system? What is the database system? Database system is just holding some holding some advertisement data, which is done, like how many advertisement was done in the last 6 months, and what was the what was that we did, or it doesn't even carry such revenue data or anything. It just talks about vendor data. Well, example, some vendor specific data. Who are those vendors who are using? Do you think these are critical systems for PCI DSS? No way, they are not critical system. Not every database system is critical. That's why I say every classification of you doing classification for the system has to be holistically looking at your business model. What business model means, what is the business you're doing, and what is the model you are using, business model, and what are the data types which are critical for you has to be identified. Accordingly, the systems have to be classified. I'm not telling PCI DSS, even though I'm taking a PCI DSS session here. So you have to be a very broader sense of classification bringing. Otherwise, every time for every regulatory requirement, you have to classify and systems. I tell you, it's a nightmare. You will need a lot of resources and a lot of time effort which goes in, and time is money. So
Sorry,
now,
when you say we should classify our systems, it's enough to just classify between PCI and non-PCI systems, right? Not
okay,
like we don't
now,
have to.
now I'm not going to give an answer to you to this as a PCI QSA, because I am much more than PCI QSA myself. Because I love to be as an information security SME subject matter expert, then could call myself as a PCI DSS very narrow down guy.
Mm.
If I talk as an information security subject matter expert or a cybersecurity expert, I would say you classifying as a PCI and non-PCI, you're restraining yourself, you're to narrow down yourself to only PCI. But why would you want to? Because your bank may be also under another many other regulatory requirements, or you want to attain many other things as your milestone, greater things, So what I would say is, from the classification of systems, from a holistically from the system within the CDE, yes, it makes sense to say PCI and non-PCI. But if you're going outside the CDE, this PCI and non-PCI should not be the term used.
Okay.
So from the PCI card data environment, yes, PCI and non-PCI makes sense. But let me ask you a question. What if there is a system, banking system, which is doing other processes apart from the system may be handling many other processes, but as a core system, core banking system, right? Now they are part of the PCI, and they are also non-PCI system. But once you touch the PCI, means you need to understand that they might be also covered under multiple other regulatories, and you need to see maybe PCI and non-PCI from the card data environment is fine, but you going beyond that and looking at you're classifying other assets, and you need to have a classification model, or the what kind of classifications you want to do, data classification as well as the system classification. I think this is the best way to look at rather than going with PC and non-PC part. I think I'm going to run through that in a while. Please give me 5 minutes time. I think we are just getting there. Now, we're getting there. I think instead of going with name specific classification, I would ask you to categorize the asset. This is called asset categorization by not by names. By categorized by the criticality to business. Criticality to the business. But once again, when I say criticality to the business, now a business impact risk assessment model might have done this. Proper risk assessment might have used this technique. Now, what would happen is a particular compliance team, PCI compliance team, internal PCI compliance team, or a compliance team working on a PCI might take that data and further work to create another classification, categorization of asset specific to card data environment in such case. Now, how big are you and how do you want to operate? I really don't know. The answer is I really don't know. But I would say your risk assessment team, that's why it's no more called risk assessment, is no more called as a risk individual, as just the risk. It's called ERM, enterprise risk management team. Enterprise risk. It's not anymore just a risk. management and enterprise risk assessment. So that's another part. So yeah, management, they also part of the risk, they do the assessment. So now network segmentation is another part to it. We need to really see. Many a times I've seen people don't understand all this, and many assessors also lack this knowledge of real segmentation and all this. It's not just a game of putting yes or no. Many a times in network segmentation, do you use network segmentation? Yes. Do you use network segmentation? Network segmentation, they say no. It's not about yes and no. What is the impact of using network segmentation? What is the impact of not using networks? Network segmentation is what an assessor as well as the customer has to be aware of. So when you segment the network, you are achieving this because you're segregating. So there's an uncertainty in the word may here. There's a clear uncertainty in the word may that one has to be aware. Okay, now now this is another one big problem, or I would not say one big problem for me, but it's not a problem for PCI. But still, they say we cannot force people to segment. But you are leaving people like this. You are telling you're also telling you have to be meeting compliance. At the same time, you're telling it's okay not to segment, but still you can achieve the compliance. It's fine. But actually, to be honestly speaking, achieving you can reach to a certain destination by route 1, which is just the shortest path, 5 kilometers, and there is a best way to reach. And you can also reach to the particular destination using a longest path, which is 15 kilometers. Why do we have to complicate? My question has always been, see, why do we have to complicate when things can be done in a very best way? Means don't give option for people to reach. Don't give an option. Shut the means you can keep the route 2 as an alternative route, but not let people use the alternative route. But PCI DSS let people use the alternative route, and that's what is. This is the story. It's saying you can still achieve PCI DSS compliance. I mean, not having this also means if you don't segment also you can still achieve. But I'll tell you that's a dirty way of looking at it, because uh, when you don't segregate, you have all the dirty things, messed up and everywhere spilled, everything is spill over all across, and that doesn't look clean, no? And achieving compliance is even a headache there. Then not sure even the compliance is really meeting that real compliance or not. That's another question I have to ask many assessors. I'll tell you, I have to say with a heavy heart, most of the compliance people don't understand the basic fundamentals properly. Most of the cases, this recording can be played with, sent to anybody. I don't have a problem, because fundamentally they are weak. Fundamentally, they are 4 years, 5 years experience, and this is this kind of technical. PCI is a more technical compliance. Apart from process, ISMS is more process driven. So now they have to bring a mix and match here of going and checking. Most of the time it becomes like a checklist driven, and that's why they say, do you have a ready checklist? I want to do tick 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 tick. The tick tick stories will tick off, and we'll never sure. I'm never sure. Even I'm telling whatever compliance I'm delivering today, as of today, is minimum base quality only I'm able to deliver. I'm not meeting that maximum quality due to the n number of constraints which I face. And this is the truth and the hardest truth of this world. And that's where I feel that I have to move away from PCI QSA, because I feel that it's the truth, hard truth. And it's also a money making business now. I mean, say most of the time money making business for a business. It's a business, money making business, because QSS, whoever just touches the QSA thing, or AQSA or QSA, they make money. And it's more become commercialized, and they when we talk to people also, they're also talking big money now. Hey, how much are you paying? Tell me, I will join. Otherwise, I'll not join. It's very crazy. Where's the quality? Quality doesn't get met. And talk about just qualitative measure. I'll tell you, unfortunate world. this is, I don't know. Anyway, that's how it is actually. Honestly, if there is any slack or slackness or any of the parameters which I have shown, it is just take it. It is not that I'm built through that slack parameter. I have a lot of other responsibilities and other things running on my head. I might have given priority. I might have prioritized certain important things, and I might be working on that because I do that actually. I just use the four quadrant rule and I work, and I see what is priority and I work. And maybe the meeting was another example, and I knew that it was supposed to. I was working weekend also on certain things, but yeah, I had a spillover. I just had to address it in the morning. But definitely you would have seen it. Meeting invite. It's not that it will not come out. This morning I had already planned to send. Anyway, segmentation methods. That's why I'm saying very importantly, we need to carve things out and do things. Segmentation methods we have already discussed. PCI, non-PCI, these are a very basic level we're talking, right? So controlled access, this is what I'm talking about. Controlled and uncontrolled or no control. Controlled access means you need to have control. Many a times I have seen my customer and external other assessors doing assessments, and they have read through the report. I see that everywhere it is just a state. See, I go and ask a customer, what are your approved, what is the business approved port list or service list? Means you have a business running already and you are doing a payment services. You should know what ports have to be approved on your payment application or a payment switch. When I go and ask, give me your approved business port list documented, they say they will try to throw things in the air and they try to say, we have port 80 is not allowed or 443 is allowed. But 443 is not the only port you will operate. Tell me the holistically what is the list of, you have, and then they say, no, this is very specific. Network will have certain ports, right? Okay, I tell them, okay, your payment switch, okay, application. Okay, what and all ports it using? Do you have a documented list for the payment application now? And next, payment application. Now there is one payment switch connects back to your upstream. It wants to connect. There is a VPN connection. What are the ports your firewalls allow? And what are the ports you allow on firewall for remote access? And what are the ports you allow for payment switch to connect to your service providers? So I want to see holistically what are those ports you are allowing and what are the connections you make and how do you make? Do you have any insecure? You as an owner of the business don't know, and how would you expect an QSA to know? Just by telling I'm a payment switch service provider, it's a joke. So most of the time it's like that. That's why documentations are very weak. And the problem is the lack of awareness or the knowledge could be one of the major issues. I think, as I said, I'm doing a lot of studies on research studies on cybersecurity, cybercrime, and all this. I've been continuously writing some research papers, so I know the statistics. Most of the time, most of the things boils back to lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, trainings, lack of skill sets. That's a problem. I know very well. And also, yeah, I don't want to deviate from the topic. It's a big subject. I can't talk because I keep doing something. This more than PCI DSS. I'm into more than a lot of things. So more than PCI. PCI is just bare minimal, base minimal standard with set up controls. Just predefined. Everything is predefined, and we have to just meet the set criteria. That's it. Okay, I think we hit the clock hit that 20 minutes is almost done. What I'll do is we'll continue because the rest of the slides to run through also definitely will take another 1 hour session. Can we stop at this point of time?
Yeah, we can end here.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. And you can park all of your questions, for the next session, including this sessions. Any questions out there? I'm happy to answer. The more the questions, I'm more happy because my brain needs food, which is reasoning and questions. Otherwise, I feel that I'm just giving, always giving. No, nothing is coming from the other side.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
you for joining. Yeah. One question is it? Oh, good.
Okay, yeah. Just want to ask about the timeline for this engagement that we have with Secure Logic, because I noticed that this has been ongoing since last year. I mean, April or May, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just wondering.
I would just ask. I would just give me a minute because I would just. I'm just getting one of the stakeholders, not TIB, to drop out of this call. I'm just getting him off the meeting. Just give me a minute because I don't want to. I don't want to discuss TIB thing. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. Please go. Yeah, can you repeat the question? I just because I had another stakeholder who was not from TIB on this call. I don't want to discuss anything when the other party was there. Oh,
Okay,
he's
sorry.
come back. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Anyway,
What was the question?
So this engagement that we have with Secure Logic, it has been ongoing since last year, and I'm not seeing any timeline given with this engagement that we have. So I'm just wondering.
Now, let me tell. Sorry to say that the statement made was totally wrong. Why? Because if you go back to the teamwork, the timelines were very clearly set. Okay, there was a Gantt chart. There was a project plan. Everything was put formally. Unfortunately, there was nothing got formal. Nothing was, no timelines were obeyed because there was a lot of issues and gaps.
Okay.
And the timelines are all derailed. And let me once again rephrase. I would love to take ownership. We can close this assessment in next 1.5 months, but please, I don't have a problem, provided you can give me all the evidence. And if there is no evidence given, that will go as non-tested and that will going to lead to non-compliance. If you are okay to accept the non-compliance, we can put up the timeline and close.
I'm not putting anything on you, actually. I'm just wondering.
Okay. No, I'm also trying to not to put the blame, but I'm telling the challenge.
I'm not putting the blame on you. It's just I'm just
That's
wondering.
Good. That's good.
This engagement that you have, how does it work? So meaning to say that because only recently that we have the second milestone. So because based on my experience with other engagement and all, it's like they have like a fixed timeline and also. So
no, there was a fixed timeline. Let me share the screen. I did not. That's why I allow I did not allow the other vendor to come in, other customer to join this call. I've just dropped him off because there is specific to TIB. I don't want to breach the confidentiality, so I just taken him out. Just give me. Let me show. It's not that we did not have anything. Let me tell you. Let me talk about the reality before I share the screen. Then anyway, the reality gets projected. Actually, it has been huge loss for me and more than anybody else, more than company. Huge loss for me to do redo the training and keep talking and give solutions on what TIB can do to implement or talk. I think you can talk to Zainul to Hadi. You can talk how much amount of time I've spent is a loss for me because TIB don't pay for that to me. I've lost my excess time. The book to time has been already gone way much excess. This is not a credit for me. I want to finish in a stipulated time. The assessment. I'm not excited to track this project. No, I'm not excited. Maybe if there is a thought process saying that, oh, we are delaying the project, let me tell you, I'll be the most happiest to close the project at as soon as possible, whatever it leads to compliance or not compliance. That's how things go with all other company. And nobody would give you extra grace time 2 times to submit the evidences. They would just do an assessment. Let me showcase some case study today for you to throw you into a light, saying that there are cases I have given non-compliance for a customer straight away, 60% compliant, 40% non-compliant, and we had a big debate. The senior management came and said, oh, we were expecting compliance. I said, please take a look holistically on the issues and you tell me whether you deserve to be compliant. And they said, what is the next step? I said, please accept this non-compliance and go work, fix your problems and come back within 6 months for other 40%. And you have to pay 100% now. And then another 40% will be a new assessment. There you have to pay for that 40%, 100%. How was that? Did I make any benefit here? As a QSA, I've been so humble and graceful that I have not made you non-compliant because it was a request saying that can we get the compliance instead of non-compliance? Then we have gracefully extended without asking you to pay any money excess. And I can show you case study now. I can show you the results of it. To be honest, I have to be honest and honest ways. If you are ready, if you can provide me the evidences, I'll be the most happiest. There can be anybody else who will be happiest than me. Closing project is the best thing because I'm under pressure from the investors going forward. I'll be under pressure from the investors to see that we have cash flow, good amount of cash flow. How would I benefit when I don't have a cash flow and I don't close the project? Anyway, let me share the screen. Let me provide some reality talks. I know these kind of things come to me, and when I show reality, people then say, wow, this guy is so much under pressure, but still he tries to do a training once again, second or third training. I don't know.
What I'm asking is,
I'm just joking.
Can you just give us a walkthrough, like what this whole engagement, like what are the things that we are doing at the moment? Because you know that Hadi is no longer part of the team, and then me and Zati is now. I just joined this month, and then Zati only joined like a month and a half ago.
How come Hadi is missing? How come Hadi is missing? Hadi should have been there in the call. He will tell also the challenge.
Hadi has been moved to application, so he no longer deals with information security management. It's just that because